The Caine is evil theory is one of the most popular Caine theories in the TADC fandom, kind of because it's sort of a common belief among the fandom at this point, second only to the Caine is neither good nor evil theory. And honestly, I don't know why anyone would make a video on these theories because of how popular they already are.
Honestly, to me, it seems like it's just chumps with nothing better to do just looking for views. Anyways, we're going to be discussing the Caine is evil theory. I assume the Amazing Digital Circus needs no introduction to you. Because if it does, why are you watching a theory video on it? Okay, we're all familiar with Caine, right? His wacky, bizarre personality with wacky and bizarre antics to boot. But we're also aware of how apathetic and dismissive he can be. I know a lot of you just rolled your eyes at that, but wait, let me cook. From not batting an eye to Kaufman's abstraction to the whole therapy scene where the person who was supposed to be listening to somehow became the therapist. We all know he's not the one to go to where you want grounded emotional connections and conversations. That's Kinga. But we can't fault him for that because he's just an AI, strictly doing what he was designed to. And I mean, it'd be unfair to fault him for his lack of sentience. Unless he is sentient. Throughout the story, we see him exhibiting characteristics that seem un-AI-like. Examples being his outbursts at Zubo, especially on certain occasions, which show he can get frustrated. Him being insecure when he realizes they're enjoying their own adventures more than his, then proceeding to sabotage them. And most especially, the time he started glitching out when he finds out they don't like his adventures, which are essentially his purpose. This last scene, in particular, was literally Caine experiencing an existential crisis. I was reluctant to use this as an example because he still could be an advanced AI, but as an adaptive or learning AI, I'd expect him to ask for ways to improve or dismiss it as he usually does. But no, he starts experiencing a real human existential crisis, which would not be possible without some form of self-awareness. Gooseworks has apparently credited I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream as being an inspiration for the Amazing Digital Circus, a story which had a sentient AI left alone in a barren setting with the last remaining humans as he forces them to do his bidding. Sound familiar? But to be honest, he reminds me more of Bill Cipher or Tenna from Deltarune. And in episode 6, we even see him looking at an image of a desktop with the headset. Personally, I interpreted this scene as him realizing what his whole existence is based on and finally having the sentience to comprehend it. Because if he had the images sooner, why didn't he do this? And if he didn't have them, why did they appear to him now? So, either way, I believe he's gaining sentience or already has it. But even if he's not, something is definitely going on with this nigga. But yeah, that brings me to my next point. If Caine is sentient, what are his intentions with the humans? We are made to believe that there are no exits out of the circus. This is firmly established in episode 1. But why? When you are first transported here, you forget your name and you just live on in the circus. But isn't that just pointless? There is literally nothing to do besides their adventures, which Ragatha remarks Caine sends them on to keep them from going insane. But if that was the case, he wouldn't ignore their suggestions for adventures because that would literally help them, and wouldn't continuously sabotage and cut short their own adventures that they were clearly enjoying. And if we're looking at it from a quote-unquote show aspect, because the Amazing Digital Circus is a show, wouldn't it be easier to use the NPCs for the adventures? That way everyone wins, right? I mean, unless he has to use humans. And come to think of it, what kind of show is Caine running anyway? They aren't allowed to swear, but can go into darker topics like mania, self-hate, two extreme reactions to trauma, existential crises, guns, and hell, they even had an angel and hell. Literally. Okay, to be fair, a lot of our shows growing up had darker themes, but still, they are very self-aware about it. All this would be easier if you could just control them. then he'd have no one going into the void. Speaking of the void, when Pomni went into the void in episode 1, Caine was immediately alerted and brought her back. But what I want to focus on here is right before he went to get her, he said something.
He'll get totally spoiled!
And his choice of words here is extremely suspicious. I initially thought this had to do with abstraction, but that's not it, because obviously Caine doesn't care about abstraction. More on that later. And that word isn't ever used by Caine or anyone else in the circus to refer to abstraction. They just say abstraction. And we can confirm, plus the fact the Amazing Digital Circus is a show. This all leads me to believe the word spoiled, used here in that context, was referring to Pomni finding out something she wasn't supposed to. You know, like being spoiled about a show. All this, coupled with the fact that the void later zooms out to show an office space with a desktop, I believe it has something to do with the exit. Because Caine saying,
Not even I know what's out there.
and then saying,
He'll get totally spoiled!
sounds pretty contradictory to me, and implies he may be lying and not just worried about them, or at least withholding some form of information. And before you say, maybe he really doesn't know and doesn't want others to find out, hence the spoiler part. Well, no. Because I don't think it makes sense for Caine as a character. He's basically the god of this realm and prides himself on his abilities. I don't think he'd leave the area unexplored and not try to find out what's out there, because it could hold fun things for adventures. Caine is so casual about his powers, he doesn't even bat an eye when he does something as crazy as any of this. So for him to leave an area unexplored, he must have a reason for it. And lastly,
Plane.
I swear I saw it.
Digital hallucinations!
just by how shaken up he is and how quick he is to change the subject, we know something's up. Like, why would an exit door, which he supposedly didn't know what to put behind, lead to the void? Do they all do that? And then again, why would he suddenly appear in the circus? But wait, if he's basically the god of this realm, how didn't he know one of his humans abstracted? When the show starts in episode 1, we see this disclaimer on Kaufmo, which I'll admit was setting things up really good. And then Pomni shows up and we know what happens from there. But my theory here is Caine made Kaufmo abstract. Yeah, I know, big accusation. But think about it. Caine literally made no remarks at Kaufmo's absence from the theme song. Like, even Zubul showed up to this one. And he didn't even do as little as mentioning his name when he wasn't around for the adventure. Although, to be fair, he does seem a lot more chill with people not participating in his adventures at this time. But my point is, he could have summoned him in both instances with as little as a snap of his fingers. But no, nothing. The next thing I want to point out is the state of Kaufmo's room when they finally meet him. Besides all the drawings of the word exit, there's this drawing of Caine with his fangs chasing him, kinda like he was out to get him. Okay, I know he probably wasn't in the best mental state when he drew all this, but still, hear me out. Abstract mode chases them through the circus and chaos ensues, but all this time, what happened to Caine's all-seeing eyes? He most likely knew and didn't bother to help. And I'm saying this because of his reaction to the news of Kaufmo abstracting.
Kaufmo went through a sort of Kaufmosis and abstracted! Kaufmo abstracted? Why didn't anybody tell me?
Caine asking, why didn't anyone tell him in such a comical way when we know he has basically omniscience would be weird to add without reason, wouldn't it? And you may be asking, why and how would he make Kaufmo abstract? The why is simple. He probably found an exit, maybe something similar to what Pomni experienced and quote-unquote got spoiled. And Caine had to do something about it. The how, well, that isn't as simple. My working theory is he drove Kaufmo to abstraction, whether through affecting his mind or not. By not, I mean he probably made a bunch of fake exits to psych him out until he drove him to abstraction. But by the other one, he probably gave him like mind herpes or something. But what I wanted to go over here is Caine and his ability to affect their minds. Although he expresses he can't do that in episode 1, somehow he is able to directly input info into Jax's mind, and the existence of stupid source itself proves he can affect their mind one way or the other. But affecting isn't controlling, I hear you say from the other side of your screen. Don't worry, I thought about that. Somehow he was able to make Jax vegan against his will. So it calls into question the whole thing. Can he affect their minds? Can he control their minds? If you've been following this video keenly, you might be asking, well, if he could affect their minds, why didn't he just erase the exit out of Kaufmo's memory? Well, I don't know. Admittedly, this theory has some holes, but it is interesting nonetheless, and to be fair, all the times he affected someone's mind directly, it was Jax. We don't have proof of him affecting another character's mind while being physically present, so we have no proof of him actually being able to affect people's mind. The reason I'm not using Jax as a firm example is because this feeds into my other theory that Jax is an NPC or an AI, either actually being an AI and forgot he was, or conforming to the archetype box so much that Caine can affect him as he does other AIs, or NPCs rather. But that's a story for another video. But yeah, I know I didn't really go that in depth. I just gave broad examples and it wasn't that deep. But admittedly, I don't have all the answers. I don't have most of the answers. My main goal for this video was just to propose some theories and get insights from people who are more knowledgeable than me, who have better critical thinking or media analysis skills. But yeah, this video is definitely getting too long and I got to go beat the Pantheons before Soxon comes out. New video definitely after September 4th. So if you agree and have more insights, I'd love to hear them. If you disagree and have insights, I'd also love to hear them. And if you enjoyed, YouTube stuff, make sure to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you didn't, dislike, unsubscribe, all that bad stuff.